Good afternoon, everyone. I think everyone is out for coffee, but we can start. And we'll start with a quick round of introductions. Who am I? Who do I have on the panel? So, firstly, my name is Swamy, and as was mentioned, and I'm a partner at Waterhouse. I've been with the firm for 26 years. I'm a chartered accountant by profession, and I've been kind of following the shipping industry, shipping developments for the last few years. So I'll be moderating this panel, and I have two eminent panelists here. I have Sachit, and I have Leena. Maybe Sachit, you want to just quickly introduce yourself first.
Yeah, good afternoon everyone. My name is Sachit. Thank you, Suresh, for having me here. By profession, I'm a master mariner, doesn't go out of life. So I was sailing with V-ships, starting from my 20 days, and I was a captain with them. For a decade, I was the managing director of Ship Management India with V-ships. V-ships is the largest ship manager in the world. And then I started my own company called Su-Nav, where we do ship management, financing, ship owning, as well as commercial management of ships.
I'm Leena, Chako. I'm a partner, banking and finance partner at Cyril, Amarchand, Mangaldas. I was part of the SAFL committee, and now we're also helping the IFSA with the regulations required in the Riv City. I've been with Cyril Amarchand from 1998, I think. So yeah.
26 years. Great. So this panel discussion is all about regulation and legislation. And is it conducive for shipping? We're going to talk about some legal and regulation stuff. Of course, I'm going to pose questions to my panelists, but I will urge the member audience here as well that if they have any burning question or if they have any burning comment, the way they are kind of seeing the legislation shaping up, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll pass on the mic, and we'll love to hear from you as well. With that, maybe let me just go to Sachit first. Sachit, can you just start this conversation? Can you just talk about what are the current regulatory and legal challenges which a shipping entity encounters? And you can generally talk about the shipping industry, and since you are coming from the ship management industry as well, you have a lot of experience there. You can talk about that specific sector as well.
Thank you, Suresh. The Merchant Shipping Act for India basically is 1958 Act, and if you look at the Coastal Shipping Act, it's 1858. So these are really primitive in nature, and I congratulate the government of India to finally look at them and realize that modernization is the way forward. At this point of time, if you look at any aspect of shipping, whether it is ship owning in the Indian flag or it is ship management,
it's too dark.
Whatever we are looking at, it's from the British era, and it's for namesake regulated, but very, very difficult to comply with. The good thing here is now we see a very positive mood from the government of India to table the new bills, the 2024, where a lot of new things have been proposed, starting from the registry of ships, which is one of the pain points of shipping in India. So a couple of things that have been tabled which might help is, one is the registry of ships, which will be allowed taking a cue from UK, Singapore, US, where say for example in US the green card holders can buy a ship. In Singapore the citizens, the long-term citizens can buy ships irrespective of their origin of the country. Same way, the government of India is now planning to allow the OCIs, the NRIs to buy vessels, Indian vessels. So that would definitely help in increasing the tonnage. The second part is the BBCD. Till now, I think so many discussions have happened that vessels on BBCD, can they be actually flagged on Indian ships or not? And I think the idea behind this whole discussion was that there is an entry barrier for many operators who do not have the upfront finance, to bring the vessels into the Indian flag and start the Indian trade. So the new bill may come out and say that the BBCD vessels that are taken can be then flagged into Indian flags, and they have to be bought after a certain period of time. The third regulation that they're coming out with is also a good one, where they say that most of the scrapping, India is the number 2 country where the scrapping of the vessels takes place in Anand. We all are aware of that. But if you see, most of these vessels are already unseaworthy, mostly, as per the government's definition as well. So these unseaworthy vessels are now, at the moment, flagged into a Gabon flag or any dark flag which is blacklisted. The government now proposes to flag these ships under the Indian flag. It's to be seen that how they will define the unseaworthiness of these vessels, but that's another way where the government plans to regulate these vessels coming into the scrapyards. As far as the definition of vessel goes, again, if you see, the 50% of the tonnage of the Indians is, the Indian flag is coastal and offshore. For that, also the new definition of vessels is coming, whereas all the vessels, irrespective of their size or whether they are propelled or not, will be registered, which is again a very good initiative to make sure that the standard of Indian shipping comes at par with international standards. And
so let me bring in, this is the right time for me to bring in Leena. And Leena, Sachit has already kind of talked about what's there in the merchant shipping bill, and he's also touched upon the coastal shipping. Before we deep dive into that a little bit more, can you just lay down the broad outline of what's the motivation behind these new regulations? What's there which will change probably once it comes?
So I think the government perceives that the shipping industry needs a lot of support and development. If you've noticed the budget recently, there was a reference to having a maritime fund. Shipping is likely to be recognized as an infrastructure sector. India's tonnage is obviously low, and the government is trying to fix that. We have therefore brought in legislations like, there's a proposed bill. The bill was there, if I'm not mistaken, introduced in 2020, it lapsed. So now we are trying to bring it on par with international standards. So there is a reference now to a national database. There's a registry that is being envisaged. They've also we've acceded to several conventions for international conventions like for maritime safety, pollution, etc. All of those conventions will now be incorporated. There is a statute now, so all of those we will be part of that. There is also protections for seafarers. So I think a lot of things, including the capital, where NRIs and OCIs will now be allowed to register Indian flag ships. So that is something that is progressive.
Sure. So it also, I have been reading in the press that it also lowers the threshold for ownership. Like today, if you have to own a ship, it has to be a bit slow. But can you take us through what's the change as far as ownership is concerned? Is foreign investment now allowed? Will this enable foreign investments into the shipping industry now?
So there is a lot of talk and press articles about foreign investment being allowed, and I think there is an enabling language which says the central government can determine. So if there is, they will determine the extent of shareholding of the existing people plus anybody else. So the NRIs, OCIs, and the Indian corporates, of course, and therefore there will be a prescribed threshold for shareholding of these people, these entities, and also anybody else. So the expectation is that foreign shareholders will come in, foreign shareholding will be allowed, and therefore that will be a big step in terms of broadening the ownership structure. And like we said, the foreign ownership should probably, one of the challenges in shipping has been that capital has always been an issue, capital funding, those issues. Hopefully with foreign ownership, there should be hopefully deeper pockets coming in, and maybe broad base and have more increased Indian tonnage, because they'll have to register.
Now, I also want to dip into your international experience, your local experience. You deal with different countries, you talk to your peers there. What do you hear from them, and what are some of the best practices you think we can, as India, can we adopt from those countries, right? In terms of regulation, in terms of say legislation. Are there any things which you, and when you're dealing with India, right, when you're on a day-to-day basis, when you are dealing with these regulations, what are the main points which you would really like to see that the bill addresses?
I think it's just the whole ease of doing business. The focus is the regulation is to ease of business, but in our sense, and I can see some of the colleagues from the other foreign law firms here also. Basically, just the registration process, the creation of security, all of that is much more streamlined, and also those jurisdictions have more tax benefits and more incentives. I think some of that is more fiscal, and we can probably address that. But procedurally, I think if we can streamline the procedure. Maybe for registration, just bring that on an international level. That will be a good start.
And the new bill does talk about some of this. Can you just touch upon?
Yeah, there is a requirement, like I said, to refer to the registry. There is a requirement of a national registry. There's going to be a national database. They also mentioned that a lot of registration-related requirements. They've just said that there's going to be a book of records, but still there is a provision to say that all of this can be in electronic form. So one hopes that this will all move into electronic form, and we can replicate, like our colleagues from Singapore say, that you can register a mortgage so easily, you don't need to go, and there is not much of regulators interface. So I think we need to get there.
And in the past conversations which we have been having, I have heard you saying about mortgage, ease of mortgage. If there are, let's say, 2 or 3 people having a charge, is there some ease as far as this bill is concerned in terms of how you recognize mortgage and how you say implement it?
So the 2 things for mortgage is, one is creation of security, and I think that's part of, firstly, the India flag is not, we need to get a better rank, and we need to get more financing, and then we need more capital. And some of the challenges that the lenders face is, just the point of creation of security being very cumbersome. The loan has to be dispersed and the security gets discharged. Then they're not, they have to still get an approval. It's not an approval, but there is a interface with the regulator. So I think the mortgage creation part should be much easier. The other challenge is on the enforcement. I think it says in the law that if there are more than one mortgagee, one lender, then if more than one person has security, then you'll have to go through the court process. I think maybe we should consider if we can move that to a more private sale, because I think in the rest, other than ships, for the rest of it, there is a private sale process which is possible, the normal kind of enforcement, and whether we can move towards that. Because ease of enforcement is a factor which lenders will consider while lending.
Coming to Sachit and the topic of seafarers, Indian seafarers is always close to heart. So in terms of we all know the reasons why Indian seafarers prefer offshore jobs versus India jobs. Is the bill kind of addressing any of these concerns? Or you can probably also tell us what would you like really the bill to address, and what changes would you like to see for the Indian ships to be more attractive as far as seafarers are concerned?
See, seafarers are the backbone. You really want to manage your ships. And the India story, if you see the maritime story of India, the biggest success has been the number of seafarers that have increased. From 2015, between 12 to 2015, there were 1,16,000 seafarers. In the last few years, it has gone to 2,85,000 seafarers. It's a huge jump. Most of the seafarers would like to definitely go to the foreign because there is no taxation over there. They get paid in dollars. There is no tax implications or tax filing. The bill right now brings in the welfare which is extended to the Indian seafarers on the Indian flag to the foreign flag as well. But I think that even more encourages them to go to the foreign flags. Coming to the Indian flag, the person who's working on an Indian flagship, first he has to pay taxes. Secondly, he has to get the money in Indian rupees, and then he becomes attached to the Indian flag. The foreign flag don't take it because then there is a complication whether he will pay taxes in which contract and which not. That is the first part. Second part is the quality of the vessels on the coast. The quality of the vessels, as far as Indian standards are confirmed, thankfully government last year has made it 20 years. So you cannot flag the Indian vessel after 20 years, if it is crossed 20 years of age. That has just happened last year. So that has improved the quality a little bit, but as compared to the foreign flagships which are brand new coming out from the yard with less problems, no tax, and all the facilities that are given, it becomes a very lucrative deal for any seafarer. To bring them back to the Indian flag, the first thing is that all the seafarers should be treated equally. The tax, if it is a person who goes on a ship, works on a ship, whether it is an Indian flag, whether it is in the Indian water, is still in the water. So that is first part that the government has to look into. The second part that they have to look into is that the quality of the shipping, which they are already working on. Congratulations to DG, that they are working on. The PSC is quite hard right now, and like Leena said that the regulations of IMO are being now incorporated into the Indian flag, be it the first single use of plastic, which is being banned from India. All the IMO regulations, if you know that, like the Swachh Bharat, now Swachh Sagar app has come to keep the seas clean. So all these things attract the seafarers who work in an environment which is conducive to the international standards. And the whole basis of bringing them to the Indian flag or attracting them to the Indian flag is two. One is the salary should be at par. Two, the environment should be same as they find on the foreign flagships. If these two are taken care of, then there is nothing stopping them. This is for the main fleet. For the coastal fleet, at this point of time, there is nothing, there is no certification, there is no colleges, there is no training which is applicable at this point of time, and the government should look hard if they are really pushing Sagarmala or the coastal shipping in a big way. They are trying to spend a lot of money on pushing Sagarmala, but they should be aware that there is right now no facility, no proper college, no proper training facility and certification facility for the near coastal vessel crew. So that is something that is to be taken very seriously if this has to be a success going forward.
Sure. One final question from my side before I turn it over to the audience for questions. I come from Gift City, so Gift City never goes out of my mind. So I just want to pose that question on what changes. So Gift City is emerging as a maritime hub. Right? How can Gift City, Gift IFSC play a role in making India a global hub for ship ownership, ship leasing, as well as ship management?
It's a very interesting question, and I think something which people have been. I think we have to. I'm just trying to say we need to balance everyone's interest. But having said that, if the Gift City needs to pick more pace, I think it's doing well in terms of but if an entity which needs to register there needs to register in the mainland under the Merchant Shipping Act, get coastal shipping license, etc. I think we need to figure out what is the incentive for people to come and set up over there. So it would be good if there was some kind of a sub-registry at least. And it's really sad that we're harping so much on things like registry, but that is where the pain points are. So maybe have like a sub-registry where maybe allow foreign ships registration over there. I think the charter, for chartering there is a requirement to register, and there are some issues in the postal bill, but that's separate. But I think just have a different legal regime in terms of maybe a subset of the merchant, the current DD shipping. Something like that should be there. Ease of doing business. Basically, we should at least in the GIFT City focus on ease of doing business. The other thing is work on funding and capital. I think ship leasing is something that needs a lot of funding. The lessors themselves are also, basically also looking at are also financiers in a way. But we need to. I think the system should be more robust so that there is an incentive to finance. Whilst making shipping an infrastructure sector, which is a positive, we find that Indian banks need to understand shipping sector a little more. So I think the expertise which is required to understand shipping sector, or not just in the banking in-house, but externally, all of those forces should be available. So I think what I'd say is probably allow foreign presence to register there. Have maybe like a dual registry if that's possible. That's something that has to be examined. But just make it easier to register and ensure that whilst everybody's interests are taken care of, some of the pain points which are there for under the Merchant Shipping Act, that should be. And now I think even the postal bill, some of those exemptions have to be made.
Okay, I agree with most of what Leena said, but I have practical experience of this on the first ship that was registered in IFSC was done by us, and it was done in 20 days. That's it. It was done within 20 days. The problem which comes with registering of the ship is there are a lot of checklists and stuff like that. That's one part. The second part is the regulations when the ship comes into India, the import of the vessel when it comes into India, the duty that needs to be paid. And to be very frank, at this point of time, as per the regulation, there is only one port of IFSC where the ship must call to do an import of the ship. A special exemption has to be taken if it has to call any other port in India and the ship has to be imported, whether you have a cargo or not. That is the main one issue that has to be, because there is no other window of IFSC as per the government compliance rules. The funding part, yes, of course. I think a lot of people have come this time also very attracted with the IFSC and wants to know more about it. And the third part is you are asking about the ship management from IFSC. It's a great deal because all these deals that are done in IFSC have a tax exemption for 10 years out of the 15 years that you choose. But again, the government has to understand that they have to follow the industry model. The industry model is that ship management companies are opened in contracts are signed and back office works are done in places which are economical. Whereas in the GIFT City right now, the rule is that you have to have the entire operations there and you cannot spend that money into India. So basically, vice versa, if you are going to open a ship management company in Singapore and run it from India, it's possible. But if you open a company in GIFT City and want to run it from anywhere else in India, it's not possible. These three things we have to look after, and I think you already have a lot of success in GIFT City, but this will really be a catalyst to accelerate the growth.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for that feedback. And I'm sure we have the regulators also here attending this event, and we will pass on some of these comments. But let me just pass it on to the audience here. Can you pass on the mic, sir? Yeah. Can you introduce yourself and then tell us who this to be
Captain Vikas with presenting postal ship owners. So my question is to you, Suresh, since it is about regulation, legislation, the recent announcement about infrastructure status is of certain size of ships, and what we hear, it is yet to be announced. Something like 6,000 is the threshold or something that we hear. Why it is not possible for smaller ships, and what we can do to influence the government to make the infrastructure? Is there any lacuna that a certain size of ships only can be under infrastructure act? Because that will open up a lot of the reducing the fiscal cost, the recurring cost of EMIs, if it is to the coastal ship owners, because they are under the size of 6,000. So is that possible? My next question, if you can take that question, is that right now there is any of the panelists can answer that Surface Area Act has this securitization on ship finance, on the ship acquisition as exempted. So the banks ask for a collateral security, so which has to be in terms of land or immovable or properties or things. So it inhibits the growth of the coastal ship owner. To buy every ship, he has to have that much of security also. So what we can do about it? So one question about Surface Area Act, how we can influence RBI or through cross ministries, and one is about infrastructure.
Sure. I am the moderator of the panel, so I will let the panelists actually answer some of these questions. But to your first question, right? And maybe I think the best thing is to ask the industry and why a 6,000, less than 6,000 deadweight capacity, why is that not included? Probably anyone from the audience knows that. I have no clue, frankly, why.
Set to be.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, it's yet to be announced. They have said specified. What is the specified deadweight? We don't know, but it will come. What is the reason? We don't know. We'll have to wait for some of the clarifications. And maybe the next 2 days we have another seminar coming up. We will have the people from DG Shipping as well there. And maybe we'll get more insight in that particular event. So we'll try and get that answer.
The smaller ships, so 6,000, below 6,000, basically most of those vessels are coming into the category of a barge. What happens in that is basically the idea is to create infrastructure for all, but the coastal trade, where the mostly these vessels are being employed with the giants like Arcelor, Tata, JSW, or gypsum boards or something. Basically, these vessels which are 6,000 above are able to generate the funds or the earnings. Whereas the smaller vessels, which we are talking about, if you see the number of those vessels that are being owned, are owned in groups by very few companies. Like 40-45 vessels are with Chako, about 45 vessels are with JSW, about 150 vessels are owned by 3 or 4 companies. So the idea of creating this segment was based on this, but like he said, that it has to be still discussed upon. This has been given basis somebody's input that okay, let us start with some segment and then maybe we go lower than that. Regarding your second question, sir, regarding the collateral part of this, that's a very important thing, that the collateral for these vessels, every time you buy, the ship is not taken as collateral in India. That is a very, even if you go to Europe, the ship is taken as collateral, but here it is not. That's the banking system right now over here, and like Leena said, that the bank has to understand better how to look at it. But the one positive part that has come from it is since the bigger companies are involved, and most of the cargoes are moved by them, except for the spot cargoes and the smaller cargoes, the banks are still okay to take the charter party as collateral at this point of time in at least 50 to 60% of the cases. If it is 2+1. If it is 2+1, they are ready to take. If it is below that, and if it is on the charter party terms are 1 month notice of charter termination, then there is a problem. And I think that is a very, very valid point, that it has to be looked upon, that not everybody can get a charter on the first go. So the entry barrier for this is quite high.
So the ship is basically.
Just one clarification, that when we say 6,000 below, the total number of ships with Indian flags around 1,500 plus, and 1,000 ships are coastal ships, and 500 are exempted bigger ships. So the smaller ships are not just barges. Just wanted to clarify that the minimal carriers are the size of 2,000, 3,000 tons. There are offshore vessels, tugs also, but there are feeder vessels, container feeder vessels also coming under, and dredgers also, for capital dredging as well as maintenance. So it's quite a large segment and it has to grow because if you want a multimodal shift, then these number of ships have to grow.
Yes, sir. What I meant is that they're termed as barges till now, and that is why the new definition in the new bill is coming in. Whereas the coastal vessels will also be registered now, like any other vessel, including the non-propelled vessels also.
I think just to on the surfacey point, a ship is considered as a separate juristic personality entity. So when the ship winding up a relationship, you'll have to follow the admiralty laws, and I think that's the challenge. Which is why I think also that it is good to have some kind of a procedure that is used in surfacey for enforcement in relationships, like you have an auction, you have a private sale procedure. That's because I think enforcement is one of the challenges for them. So that has to be made easier.
Thanks. I'm already getting a prompt that over time.
One question, please.
Just one question there. Yes. Last question. Andrew, with your permission, we'll just.
Thank you. This question is for Madam Chako.
Speak into the microphone.
My name is Shardul Thakkar, partner of Mula, and you mentioned about a sole mortgagee can go to court without intervention. But don't you see the problem on the resistance from the crew in that case? Because the crew always, in reality, you lack the cooperation from them. And that creates a problem so that they have the difficulties because they have a priority. So how do you approach that problem? Sorry, did you get my question?
Yeah, I did. I said you are the expert, but just let me try from my perspective. The way I see it, it's also like in the normal companies you have workmen's dues and things like that. I think these are things which have to be addressed. Because I think you are familiar. You have done the Baj Manda case, which is quite famous, which kind of set the standard for insolvency. How these two things have to work: the Insolvency Court and the Admiralty Act. So I think some of these challenges are there, but I don't think it's insurmountable because I think it's like addressing workmen's dues, and some provision will have to be made for that.
Because if you know private sale, as you said, that lacks the problem, but the court sale with a clear title. So clear title is a comfort, and that is where how do you go into a private sale? The risk of a private sale.
Right. I think the same way that some of these issues have been addressed in the IBC. In terms of insolvency, you have a resolution, what is the title that is transferred, or when the resolution applicant transfers it to a new, when it is transferred. I think those are the kind of issues which will have to be addressed. And the same thing like what we do for a regular company which has employees. This is the way I see it.
Thank you, Leena. I think in the interest of time, we will flagged off already. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you audience for all your questions. We have the panelists available after this session as well. So please feel free to reach out and pose all your questions. Your comments are welcome. Your suggestions are welcome. Thank you so much.